and those questions were not asked, that would make an FBI director, and you know more about this than I do, that would make an FBI director raise a lot of questions.
No, it really would. And look, I think we have the benefit of now another year of an investigation, right? And we've seen certainly Michael Flynn deciding to plead guilty and essentially becoming a very important witness to the special counsel. As a result of him, you can start seeing some additional people who've come forward and have given testimony to the special counsel. So I think that what Comey is alluding to is certainly a lot of what we have now seen, which is that the special counsel is following this idea that somebody, somewhere inside the campaign was doing something that may have been improper, and they're trying to figure out how high that goes. And I think that's the concern that you heard in the interview, which is that maybe it's not Donald Trump himself, but perhaps someone very close to him might have done something that the Russians know about and could use to compromise the administration.
I have to say, though, I wish he spoke a little bit more, was asked, what exactly, why do you think he was compromised versus past presidents?
Well, he did mention the tape.
He did. But I think, you know, like you said, there has been a lot out in the public sphere, including the infamous dossier.
Right.
And so I think I can guess that if the president was watching this, that would really bother him, because he's basically giving credence to really what the heart of the dossier is about, the dossier that the president himself has said is unverified, has been debunked, everything like that. Jason Miller.
Well, no, and I feel that's where we're heading a little bit towards the spot that Trump supporters frequently, like myself, get put into, where there is this allegation that there's some supposed coordination or collusion between the campaign and a foreign entity, to which there's been zero proof that's been put forward. And then someone like myself gets out there and says, well, there wasn't any coordination or collusion. So we start playing kind of this circular game. But I think it's also important to point out, when you take a look at former Director Comey, just how far he has fallen over the past 2 years. I mean, 2 years ago, I think everyone sitting here probably would say he's one of the most unimpeachable characters that are out there, that he's on, he's up at this different plane. And now he's essentially, he's become a political figure. I mean, even his body language in the interview is he's talking about the Cosa Nostra, and he's talking about the video. He's shifting around, and it looks to me like not very believable at all. I mean, he's trying to sell books. He's trying to sell movies. I think it's pretty clear what this is about.
Jason, the guy has millions of dollars from his hedge fund job previously, so I think he's okay. I think the book sales are really not really the motivator here. I think he's got a story to tell, and I think he feels compelled to tell it. I'm not sure, you know, we can pass judgment.
I think he wants to make some money. I mean, the book deal and the movie deal. This isn't just about the story.
I want to bring in Jeffrey Toobin very quickly, because I do want to ask you about the timing of the release of this book. I think, you know, the fact that he released the book, Jeffrey Toobin, is not a surprise. But the fact that he released it right in the middle of the Mueller investigation, when it hasn't wrapped up in terms of the obstruction of justice probe, and the fact that Comey is a key witness in that, is it appropriate for him to be releasing the book now?
Well, I mean, he's a private citizen. He has First Amendment rights. He can do what there's certainly no legal bar to him doing it. I mean, I think he exposes himself to some criticism for his timing. You know, as someone who is a book writer myself, you know, the notion that he is, you know, the shocking thing that he's trying to get people to buy his book, and he's trying to actually put interesting stuff in there so people will want to read it. I mean, those don't strike me as terribly damning criticisms. But, you know, it is true that this is the middle of the investigation. But the other point that's worth pointing out is that he's been extremely consistent in his testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee and in his interview and in this book, compared to the president, who has just, like, you know, made up a fantasy about, you know, that there are tapes in the Oval Office. There's just not, I mean, his consistency in his story, which is most important in a witness, is pretty impressive.
His accounts are also corroborated by their witnesses. For instance, the account of that first intel briefing with the president, James Clapper, who was also in the room, has said the same thing. But Jeffrey Toobin, if I just can, I know that, you know, we can talk about, you know, another Washington poll who wants to make money off a book here, but keep in mind, just he is saying that there's a possibility that Russia, a foreign adversary, has compromising information on him. Is that not the bigger topic?
Well, you know, I think you know, you're making a very valid point, which is there is a public interest in saying what James Comey is saying and saying it right now. You know, the fact that the president behaved this way, the fact that the Russians may have something on him. I mean, you know, that's why, you know, I think it is a good thing for public officials to go write books later on, because they have things to say that are of importance to all of us. And
I want to,
you know,
Janet, to get
I'm
in very quickly.
glad to hear him say it.
Yeah, no, and I just want to go back to what Jeffrey was saying about, of course, people who write books should write interesting things. James Comey has so many interesting things to say, given the obvious situation. And the point I was making before was that it doesn't necessarily have to be the color of his skin, the size of his hands, things like that, because being in the room, being a firsthand witness, having the experience that he has had, not to mention knowledge about the investigation, that's enough to sell books.
We'll be right back. Still ahead, Comey talks about his discomfort during a strange and inappropriate private dinner with the president. We'll be back.